Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And you have Jaime and Fuego here.
And we are doing our brief review of Chucky, episode number 2 of season 1, because I'm hoping, after seeing the first 2 episodes of this, I'm already hoping that we're going to get multiple seasons of this show, because what I realized while watching this one, Fuego, is it's so great to have new Chucky material on a weekly basis. Like, half of a movie's worth, 40 to 45 minutes of new Chucky material every single week for 10 weeks. That is so rad. That basically means we're getting 5 full-length worth of movies of Chucky, and it's old school Brad Dourif Chucky, and I found myself smiling ear to ear in a number of places in this particular episode. I think I like this episode quite a bit more than the first one, because I don't think it had quite as much to do as far as setup goes. Like, we're already hitting the ground running. So I gotta say, starting off, I really dug episode 2. My love for the show is only growing.
Yeah, just to reiterate your excitement, there has to be the same amount for Don Mancini, I would imagine, because as opposed to condensing, he can expand, and that's where I'm really starting to feel this with the second episode. I wasn't immensely over the moon for it, but then again, that's probably because I don't have quite the same affinity for Chucky as you, but I feel like this is leaps and bounds above the recent remake, and Colt, and even Curse, and which Curse, I've been a Curse apologist. Excuse me, it's the other way around. Colt apologist, Curse not so much, but yeah, man, this feels like they are putting the proper money and just giving him the chance to cultivate his character much more so than ever before, and it's really resonating. And we have kind of predicted a little bit as to what they're trying to do, but I'm still captivated and well along for the ride. So
absolutely. So basically with these reviews, you guys, I realized a couple of things. One, to talk about the production value, every single episode is going to get very repetitive. So, we addressed it pretty well the first one. It's clearly high budgeted, high-end production value. It's shot well. If there are any severe missteps along the way, we'll certainly bring those to your attention, but we don't necessarily need to go over every single aspect of every single episode. So mostly the things that I feel will be changing along the way is obviously story evolution, dialogue, and possibly effects, depending on how much Chucky we're getting and how many kills we're getting and things along those lines. So I think those are going to be the things we focus on the most out of these reviews. So bear with us as we go through everything. Now, the story for this, it continues. Fuego, why don't you, since I covered the story in the first one, why don't you go ahead and hit the story in this episode?
yeah, so we have the additional saga, I suppose, of our queer-centric main character who is now living with his uncle and his, aunt-in-law, whatever you want to classify that as.
Very affluent couple.
Yeah, and also a very just ridicule-centric cousin who is training for different triathlon events, if I remember correctly, and also is involved with a super bitch-faced blonde. And yes, I was always enamored with blondes when I was a kid, but boy, were there so many mean ones that I encountered, and this girl epitomizes it 100%. But then there is also a budding potential relationship for our lead, and I feel terrible that I'm forgetting his name at this particular point. Our lead Don Mancini stand-in.
Oh, shoot! Now you're putting me on the spot.
No. Yeah. Well, our lead character.
Yeah, we know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and so that he has a potential friendship, possibly more, that is budding with
Jake.
Jake. Yeah, okay. And so that is a thing, but he is still obviously getting acclimated, and even beyond that, he realizes that his father's death was due to Chucky. And so that's the big thing, everybody. We will be spoiling the previous episode in each of these, and that's something really important to mention. And so his dad died at the hands of Chucky in the previous episode, and it does come in a gag in this episode where he is being continually kind of given shit, and everybody is, making fun of him. And there's a particular character, without going into it, where she makes fun of his dad dying, and it's really rough and horrible.
It's so terrible. Like, literally, he walks in and the whole crowd of people are laughing at her, basically, acting like his dad being shocked to death in front of him, dressed as him with the dirty goatee and the dirty chin goat.
Yeah.
But so please continue.
Yeah, so there's that, but then interestingly enough, even beyond is where Chucky is kind of, I guess he was initially being presumed he's going to be like this anti-hero sort of presence, and I guess he is, especially with one mention that he makes about his queer son, and I know that has
I don't think
really
I guess
made
anti-hero,
a lot of
kind of.
Yeah. Well, but okay, so he is really positioning himself as the friend to the end, but then with a few things that he does, you have to question how much about that he is. And there's not a ton of kills in this. There's a lot of potential kills, and there's more so than anything, I would say, for an episode that is very Halloween centric. Give me something good to eat, I think, is what it's entitled. There's a couple very funny moments. I thought this was much more on a humor side of things, really resonating with me, where I laughed, especially where he's wearing the Hello Kitty mask and various other things. And I mean, there are some beats in this that were more so where the series veered into humor, which I didn't think in the first film there was much humor. 2 and 3, a little bit, they flirted with it, but you know how much I love Bride, man, and Bride was where the humor was almost like balanced with the horror, and this felt much more like that to me. So
just to reiterate what Fuego said, we have to change things up as we talk about a TV show from episode to episode, right? We have to be able to talk about what happened in the episode. So yes, we will be spoiling what happens in the episodes going forward and making predictions, right? Because that's part of the fun. We've only seen the first 2 episodes. We might as well make predictions going forward. And to that end, one of the predictions I'm going to make, what they're obviously leaning into, is at some point Chucky's going to do something so bad that's going to point to Jake, but Chucky's going to frame Junior, his cousin, the rich kid, for it instead, because he's already kind of catching the blame for certain things, and I can already tell that Chucky's going to frame him for something that Jake, or either that Jake did or that Chucky did, that Jake would otherwise have taken the blame for. I think that's definitely going to happen. Cody Leach made a funny tweet where he's like, I can't believe that I actually just gasped at a moment when he got to the point where she was making fun of the dad's death. And I was like, I responded with, yep, that's when all of us collectively threw out our morals and said, yep, get her, Chuck.
Yeah, exactly. Kill that bitch, you know?
So I like where the show is going. Chucky takes the time to kill the maid at the rich people's house, which this was one of the other kills that was shown in the trailers pre-show. Now there's no other footage from the trailers that we haven't seen now, if I can recall correctly. So
aside from seeing like Fiona,
right,
and
that
some
stuff,
of the characters that we'll notice later, but as far as like major beats, I don't think they've spoiled much.
No, so that's good to know going forward. Like, we're all blank slates going forward. But I thought the kill was simple, right? He just kind of shoves her and she falls onto some knives, but it still looked good.
Yeah, I still like this knife reflection thing that they are doing throughout, even at the end of the episode. And this isn't a spoiler for the end of the episode, but there is something where they keep showing Chucky and his reflection on the side of the knife, and it's really cool and effective, in my opinion.
It ties in well. I mean, technically, I already know what the picture we're using behind us, and we're using the one where it's his face reflected in the knife with all the kids on it. So right there down, if I'm not mistaking where I'm going to put myself on this. But
almost like marveling at himself to some degree, which is kind of funny. And you would assume the worst from Charles Lee Ray in that regard.
I do agree with you, though. I thought this episode was particularly funny. Like, I was amused at a lot of it. You brought up the scene when Chucky was playing video games with the little kid, and they were playing like a Mortal Kombat style game, and the kid's like, "You're okay with playing this?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I love to encourage the murdering tendencies of children," stuff like that, something like along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, and I thought that was a really funny line. And then
it was Bitchface's little sister, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So,
the one that kind of smiled during the talent show performance. Okay.
Yep.
But the other bit that I thought was hilarious was the subtle, kind of, but not really, but still kind of subtle, when the cop is asking the uncle and wife after the babysitter, or the maid rather, had been killed. She was asking them personal information. She's like, "Did you know if she have family?" And the wife acted all upset. She's like, I know this is cliche to say, but she was like family.
Yeah,
and then they proceeded to not be able to answer a single personal question about her or her family. It was so funny.
Oh, seriously, dude. They were like, "Where does she live? Does she have any friends?" And they're like,
"We think she has a brother, maybe.
Brother in Baltimore or DC or something," but they had no clue. So it shows how out of touch those sort of rich and privileged people are, and it's just further reinforcement about not just bullying and the disregard of queer-centric kids and those who are trying to figure themselves out, that Mancini has made a very deliberate effort to address, but also about privilege and, I don't know, the haves and the have-nots, and how there is that big despondency, and how close do you really think you are with those people who serve you, so to speak. And so I mean, it's fascinating, and it's almost giving me certain vibes, now that we're talking about it, of the film that we just watched earlier today, which was Antlers. So
yeah, which was great. By the way, that review will be going up tomorrow. So the Chucky review is going up today, Thursday, if I can at all manage it, and then Antlers will go up Friday, a full week ahead of its official release. So that way next week we can focus on Last Night in Soho, and it was Last Night in Soho and Army of Thieves will also be that weekend. So
but to clarify, themes, not tone, because the tone of Chucky is completely
different than Antlers.
But at least as far as some of the exploratory stuff that they are addressing and calling out, like just pointing a bullseye at. So
and one of the things I wanted to address on here too is someone posted a outrage tweet and was like, "I can't believe that Chucky's going woke now too." It's referring to the scene that you were talking about earlier, where Chucky talks to the kid about having a gender fluid child himself. Jake asks him, "You don't care that I'm gay?" And he's like, "Jake, I'm not a monster." Like that's his response. It was really funny. He's like, "I got a gender fluid kid." So apparently there are people.
He's like, "You have a kid?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I got a kid."
So someone tagged me in that, like, "Can you believe this?" And they tagged it was a GIF where the person like slapped their forehead, and I was like, this, like, saying something like that betrays that you clearly have no clue about the franchise at all. But look, the fact that he's bringing it up, maybe that's paving the way for Glenn and Glenda to show back up. Although he did say, "I got a gender fluid kid," and now there's two of them though. Glenn and Glenda are in two different human bodies. So I wonder what happened there.
I forgot that aspect.
Yeah, that happened at the very, very end of Seed. So I'm not sure why he'd say, "I got a gender fluid kid," unless the two children identify as one.
I didn't remember him saying gender fluid. I remembered him saying, "I have a queer kid."
He's like, and Jake says, "Really?" And he's like, "Gender fluid." He does. He says gender fluid.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it was late when I watched it last night, so I will defer to you being the Child's Play expert, obviously.
So anyway, I am digging the series. The gore is there on the kills. I thought the part where Chucky was almost killing someone got a little silly, because it's like, if stabbing right here isn't working, change where you're stabbing. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I think it was more so for us to anticipate the death of that character, which is presumably inevitable,
right?
Based on her behavior. And yes, I guess saying her makes you understand who I would, presumably be.
I mean, again, we don't need to worry about spoiling it. The people watching this presumably are watching the show along with us. So he really wants to kill the girl. And so that's actually where the show ends. That's a good thing we didn't talk about yet, is where Chucky goes to Jake after Jake is completely destroyed, from the girl acting like his dead father in front of everyone else and them all laughing at it. Chucky says, well, Jake, it's time to basically take things into your own hands. And he hands Jake the knife. And isn't that when Jake looks at himself in the knife? And that's kind of how it ends.
Yeah, and there's all the Super Bowl analogies, and it's just like, you got to get out there and play, kid, and all that different stuff. And so, yeah, it felt like the first essence of the presumed turning point that both you and I were predicting and anticipating and, thinking was going to happen. But, yeah, there was enough in this episode, though. It felt not as much like a scene setting, I don't know, stopgap or whatever. I don't know. There were enough very amusing instances between the video game aspect that you mentioned, and then also, trying to kill somebody. There was, Jake with his potential love interest in hell, where they get thrown in the closet,
Right.
and all of that. So it's still, to a degree, if I'm going to say anything, because there was somebody on Twitter who just called me out tonight, and they're like, oh, Fuego always has to say something that he doesn't like about, a show. It still feels a little CW kid-centric to me, like Don Mancini is trying to make this franchise appeal to a younger audience, but I still like it. It's not really upsetting me that much. It's something that I take notice of, but I could see some other more hardcore Chucky fans being just like, yeah, they're trying to make it for kids or whatever. I'm not that, pissed about it that I think certain fans might be, but I could see it, being contentious. So,
I mean, Chucky has almost always involved kids in some way, shape, or form, because he's always trying to jump into one. So that always has been a factor. This is a different Chucky story, and this is a new avenue by which to tell it. And I'm fine with it. Again, who's to say that any of these characters will still be involved in season 2? They may try a whole nother thing where Chucky goes off and deals with a whole new group of characters. Who knows? But yeah.
It was the party with all the kids looking like they're legit, junior high. And I was like, okay, But yeah, aside from that, I was very impressed with this. I thought Durif was great in his inflection in so many of those scenes where he was trying to entice Jake, and especially at the very end, the scene we were just talking about, where he's trying to just bring him on board, and they're like, okay, you have been oppressed so much, you have been just hated on, victimized, all these different things. There comes a breaking point, and when you could see his head turning a little bit, as in Jake, and kind of ready to embrace it, I thought that really elevated that kid as an actor, personally. And I don't know what that's going to lead into for his potential relationship with the other kid, or hatred, and maybe helping Chucky take out some other characters. But yeah, there's enough balls in play where I'm very fascinated, and I'm incredibly intrigued to see where things go. And Devon Sawa, man, even in this different character role, Catherine was like, oh, he looks so old, and I'm like, no, he's aged, and he looks like he's a father now. I mean, between Hunter x Hunter, between the fact that he's played 2 roles in this, I think he has been great, and the nuance between the 2 brothers was distinctive. It wasn't like some of those things where we see somebody, oh, they're playing twins and they're pretty much exactly the same sort of character. No, he gave enough to each of them to make them seem interesting enough and distinctive, and yeah, props to Devon. I'm happy that he's working more prominently again. So.
Indeed. So I think that's going to do it for our discussion on the second episode of Chucky, you guys. Thank you very much for watching. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you again to all of our patrons for supporting the channel. Let us know what you guys are thinking about these episodes down in the comments down below. We definitely want to get y'all's opinion on everything that we are talking about here for sure. So until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias a Jaime and Fuego.
If you enjoyed the review, click the like button and subscribe. Ding that notification bell to make sure you don't miss our Antlers review as soon as it goes live, as well as all the rest of our Chucky reviews. So thanks again, and remember, stay scared.
Stay scared.